WVEC TV, Hampton.
Here we go.
This is Jeff McKay, ABC News.
If I was 20 years old or 22 years old right today, and I was able, and I'd go back to the Ford plant, I'd go back to the Ford plant.
When the going got tough, they sent it to Norfolk.
Our striving as a team, that's how we want to go out. We want to go out number one.
In 1925, the Ford Motor Company opened its 35th assembly plant in Norfolk, Virginia. And in June of 2007, the final vehicle to be built at the plant will roll off the assembly line. But the story of the Norfolk Ford Assembly Plant and the men and women who have worked there over the last 82 years will have left a rich and enduring legacy of pride in community, service, hard work, and quality in Hampton Roads. At the beginning of the 20th century, Henry Ford revolutionized the automobile industry and the world with the moving assembly line and his first big success, the Model T. In 1921, 18 years after the Ford Motor Company was founded, they announced that they would be building a plant in Norfolk, Virginia, on a 40-acre tract of land beside the Elizabeth River, accessible to both shipping and railways. The plant was considered a state-of-the-art factory for its day. The assembly line alone snaked for miles. The plant even housed the very first showroom for Ford vehicles in the region before dealerships began to open. On April 20th, 1925, Norfolk Mayor S. Heth Tyler drove the first car ever produced at the plant out of the factory for an adoring world to see. It was the first of just over 29,500 Model Ts built that year by the workforce of 750 men. They had already exceeded their original production goal and were eager to prove they had just as much pride in their product as their brothers in Detroit. They were happy to work hard for the very fine wage of $5 a day. What became the Norfolk Pride was born early. Over the next 82 years, through good times and bad, if you were willing to work hard, the Norfolk Ford Assembly Plant was always one of the best jobs in town. But the work wasn't easy. Burnley Smith was 22 when he first started working at the Norfolk Ford Assembly Plant on the chassis line in 1939. Only 4 men were hired at the plant that year.
It was hard work. They paid you good money for the time you spent in there, 8 hours work. And compared what you got promoted to the Ford plant, that was big money at that time. Because I went to work there, I worked there for $5 a day. And I worked there 6-7 months, they gave me $1 raise. And my daddy worked for the Virginia Electric and Power Company. Didn't make that kind of money. He was the engineer, made gas, this artificial gas, for the people to cook with. And he didn't make that kind of money. And so I was making more money than my daddy was, and he'd been there for 12, 15 years.
The pay was so good that many workers from North Carolina drove an average of 2 hours and 100 miles a day to get to work.
And they would have to get up 4 o'clock in the morning just to get here. And they would come down here with station wagons where they would buy a human body they could get in them.
The conditions were tough. Most everything for many years was done by hand or with very simple machines.
Uncle Jack worked on the trim line, and he put in headliners, and over the years it wore his teeth at an angle in the front. And he died at 91 years old about 4 years ago. And those teeth were still wore off in the front. And he would tell you about the hard times. And of course, if the plant broke down during the days then, and it stayed down an hour, you went outside the plant, and that hour was deducted from your pay.
Well, the plant was hot, and they'd open all the windows and everything, but it didn't have air conditioning, and they couldn't have air conditioning in there because all the doors and everything was open. And what fans they had in there, and all the fan was doing was stirring up the hot air, keeping it moving. And so you didn't get a whole lot of breeze in there.
Paint shop, you were required to wear coveralls when working in the spray booth. They would give you ample time to prepare. And wearing a respirator all day created some concerns, but we had to do it, and we did it.
It was rough. I come here in 1964. Matter of fact, I was the last person to get hired in '64, and on many a day I regretted it. But you had X amount of days to learn the job. It was men's work, and if you didn't get it within an ample time, out the door you went.
Probably the most boring job you will ever have in your life. You will feel like you're going absolutely crazy if you have to do that one action one more time. If it wasn't for radios, the joking and teasing that goes on, you would lose your mind. You really would.
The Norfolk Ford Assembly Plant was not only one of the best paid jobs in town, it could also be a gateway to great opportunities. Rock Blunt, after starting out as a paint repairman in 1969, will be retiring as the Employee Resource Coordinator after a 38-year career with Ford.
People come here not just to get a job, but for a career. You don't see our people with a high turnover of going other places to get jobs. Once they come here, you usually see them 30 years from now.
Jimmy Holt joined the Ford plant in 1952. After several years in the paint department, he embarked on a new career in the powerhouse as an engineer.
Well, I started out as I guess you would say a gopher, and from a gopher they let me watch the boilers, a boiler fireman, and from a boiler fireman after you've been there a number of years, more or less served like an apprenticeship. They felt like they could trust you with the boilers, they might make you an engineer. So, and that's the way that went.
Well, after I worked on the trim line for probably about 3 to 4 months, I got called to the cushion department, and that's where they made seats. The cushion department back in the day was more like Devil's Island. They would send people there who had been bad. You know, we'll send you to the cushion department if you don't behave. So, but I liked it. And so I just excelled in the cushion department and got to be where I was what they would call the champion of the cushion department. And if Ford had any problems throughout the system or any kind of, they needed a representative to represent Norfolk in that particular area, they would send me all over the country.
Minorities had actually worked at the plant beginning in the 1930s and 1940s, but did not have access to equal employment opportunities until the mid to late 1960s.
When I first was hired in 1969, there were very few minorities included in the plant population. But as we can see now, due to different programs and equal opportunities, we have an abundance of females as well as minorities.
And while a handful of women had always served as support staff, they became part of the rank and file in 1976 when they began working side by side with men.
We're talking about a culture that really underwent a big change when we all showed up in '76. And there was some hostility, but not everybody. I mean, a dear friend of mine to this day, calling my Ford plant daddy, Hunk Hollowell, just kind of took me under his wing.
It is hard to go anywhere in the Norfolk Ford Assembly Plant and not see the UAW Local 919 logo next to the Ford Blue Oval. But this was not always the case. As the country emerged from the Depression, the Norfolk plant expanded. But Henry Ford fiercely resisted unionization of his plants. and the UAW Local 919 in Norfolk was not formed until 1941. Prior to this time, Henry Ford's moving assembly line stopped for very little, including bathroom breaks.
Only time you got a break in there back before the union got in there was that you had to go take a break on your own wrist, and when you come back, the line don't stop. When you come back, your job is in the hole, and to get that job back, nobody helped you. You had to get it back as best you could, and of course the man that worked beside you, he couldn't help you, because if he did, he was scared he'd get part of your job.
Far as the relationships between the union and the company back in the old days, when I first got started on the line, wasn't a whole lot of representation. If they said they were going to do it, we expected them to do it. And then the next meeting we'd come back, and if it wasn't done, we would raise a little bit more cane. But another good thing we've had here is there's always been a pretty good relationship, especially in the later years, with the employees and supervision. I mean, and that was good. You need some of that, you know.
We have situations that we do meet on adversarial relationships, but we all manage to come out what's good for the company, it's good for the union, good for our employees.
Generations of families have worked at the Norfolk Ford Assembly Plant from the very beginning, and it is hard to find anyone at the plant who is not related by blood or marriage. Over the years, the Norfolk Ford Assembly News featured photos of everything from birthdays and wedding announcements to family days, work anniversaries, and progress on workers' newly built homes. These family connections are part of the rich legacy of pride in a job well done.
My family's been there since there's been a Ford Motor Company, and there will be one there until they close the plant.
I knew my dad had gone the extra mile to get me the job. And knowing that, when I went there, I mean, it was the worst experience I've ever, I've never been cussed at in my life that way. I've never worked so hard in my life. I've never so tired in my life. But the only thing that kept me going, because if it wasn't for my dad, knowing that if I quit or did anything like that, I would let my dad down.
Well, that's what made this place so unique and so good, and why the quality's always been so great, is because it's kind of handed down. My uncle got me a job here, and he said, when you go in there, don't embarrass me. You get in there and you do it because it's man's work, and that's what I had to do. And the same thing when I've got people hired here, whether it be nephews or cousins or my daughter or whoever else, is that, you know, go in there and do the job.
There were also many Ford marriages through the years.
I was working on the instrument panel line, putting in heater controls, and he worked in the cushion department, which at that time was right next to where I worked. And shoot, we knew each other 15 years before we ever, came together as a couple. But there are a lot of Ford plant couples. A lot of people found love and happiness in the Ford plant. Forget about Match.com, it's Ford.com.
The hours spent on the line and elsewhere in the plant also created a larger Norfolk Ford Assembly Plant family.
On the line when we worked together, everybody was a family, a lot of camaraderie there. I guess one of the biggest things was we always shared their problems with one another, family problems, personal problems, and because we're there 10, 11 hours a day, 6 days a week, for many, many years, and actually we're with them probably more than you were with your family. And when you got with your family, you was too tired, you went home, went to bed.
I was happy. I enjoy work. I enjoy working over there. I really did. And a lot of people say, how in the hell can you enjoy working over there? It worked hard, and it was dirty, and it was this, and it was that. Because they would come by and say to me, do you mind working tonight a couple of hours? Because we got to get these 2 or 3 motors repaired to work tomorrow. Or we got something coming in, got to be fixed to work tomorrow. You mind working a couple of hours? And I always say yes.
The men and women at Ford were also loyal customers, and a great high point was to have co-workers build your car.
You watch it from going to just a floor pan Then they start building the walls, and it's all bare metal. It doesn't have a life yet. Go down the line with your car, and you're walking with it, and you're going, this truck, car behind me, it's mine. Look out for me, okay?
During good times as well as bad, one of the strongest traditions at the Norfolk Ford Assembly Plant was the commitment to community, whether it was one of their own or a stranger. Over the last 80 years, millions of dollars donated by Ford and plant employees have helped organizations all over the region. Well over $500,000 was contributed during the plant's last year of operation.
A blood drive was one thing. The company supported that 100%. And I mean, when you had a blood drive, they would carry you wherever the blood drive was. They waited for you, they brought you back, and they would give you enough time off to get yourself squared away. And when they had a blood drive, it really turned out.
The Ford community is going to be really missed because not only do we make the best product, we also helped out the community by doing the civil service type of things that helps out the community by painting, by cleaning up the highways. We give toys to top Marines. Oh my gosh, they'd had to send out these huge, humongous Marine transport trucks, 2 or 3 of them, to fill it up. So that's been going on for year after year after year. And I know when Christmas rolls around this year, the Marines are going to go, wow, we can't go to the Ford plant. It's not there anymore.
Beginning with the Model T, an amazing array of vehicles rolled off the line over the Norfolk Ford Assembly Plant's 82-year history. This roster is a ride through the 20th century and includes Model A's, Deuce Coupes, sedan delivery trucks, school buses, Crown Victorias, station wagons, Galaxies, taxi cabs, squad cars, and especially the F-150 series truck. There were even a few repairs on the ill-fated Edsel. But no matter what came off the assembly line, making it the best it could possibly be was paramount.
See, we built a lot of taxi cabs for New York, because the people in New York wouldn't have a taxi cab unless it was built in this Ford plant. And that's the same way with North Carolina. They wouldn't have a police car, a school bus, or a dump truck unless it was built in this plant. If it couldn't be built in this plant, they didn't want it.
What's so great about Norfolk? Why does Norfolk always be recognized for high levels of quality, for less grievances? It's just because of our people. That's the only answer. We have good people here. We have caring people dedicated to building the best product, not only in Ford, but in the world.
One of the most extraordinary chapters of them all, the F-Series truck, is the final one at the Norfolk Ford Assembly Plant. Beginning in 1974, only trucks were produced at the plant, and in 1983, the F-150 series was introduced. It went on to become the greatest success story since the Model T, and was not only the best-selling truck ever for the Ford Motor Company, but in the history of the whole automotive industry.
Just what you said, Norfolk Pride, it's there, it's always been there. It was instilled in us through our families. You know, you go in here, you give the man a good day's work, and if you don't get all your work done, something, you miss something, you let them know. And that's what the Pride's all about. And then we kept coming back as the #1 truck plant in the world.
Every time I went in a group of Ford people and they found out you were from Norfolk, they just gravitate towards you because Norfolk has always been #1.
Well, I think we were one family, and it's part of all of our hearts and sleeving. And I don't even know whether I want to go back in the plant between now and then or not, because it's a heartbreaking situation.
But still, you're gonna miss those people, and you'll look back and think about the things you did on the line. And 43 years, a long time.
I think the legacy is going to be, it's probably made when the going got tough. They sent it to Norfolk. When they couldn't get it done in Detroit, they sent it to Norfolk. When they couldn't get it done in New Jersey, they sent it to Norfolk.
Hi, my name is Mark Fields, and I'm president of the Americas of Ford Motor Company. I hope you enjoyed this look back on more than 80 years of history shared by Ford and the people of Hampton Roads. In that time, you and your families and neighbors built some of the most significant vehicles in Ford and American histories, including the Ford Model T, the Deuce Coupe, and of course, the Ford F-150. And I hope you're proud that you made life better for millions of Americans who depend on quality cars and trucks for both work and play. I'm sure you know that idling the plant wasn't an easy decision for us to make, especially since Norfolk has stood for excellence for so many years. But we had to because Ford is facing competitive and economic challenges that are unprecedented in our history. The good news is the wheel is turning and our plan is on track. Even though many of you will soon retire, resume your education, or embark on new careers, I hope you'll keep cheering for Ford. We're delivering an exciting wave of new car, crossover, and truck products that we think customers are going to absolutely love. They have bold design, very good fuel economy, and we'll deliver them with the quality that will make you proud of your time with Ford and our long history in Hampton Roads. Good luck, and thank you so much for your dedication.